Hello. Hello, guys. Justin, can you hear me? Hello. Are we on?
We are live, yep.
Can you hear me, Justin?
We can hear you a little bit, Your Worship.
Okay, I'm going to just increase my volume. Hold on. Is that any better?
A little bit better.
Okay. I'll just keep quiet. I'll just keep quiet.
Is this our mayor speaking then when he said that?
Okay, I'm going to shut off my mic. I don't want any feedback.
Okay. All right. Well, let's call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special meeting of the Human Resource Committee on Friday, June 9th, 2023. So we'll call the meeting to order. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest?
None.
Okay. Before we get into the agenda, I just want to say, just apologize for not being able to attend the meeting on the regular meeting of Human Resource on Tuesday, and thank you to Councillor Ramsey, who presided as chair of that meeting. So we have the approval of agenda. Mayor Brown, do we have second?
Seconder. Second.
Yes, thank you. The adoption of the minutes from June 6, 2023 meeting.
Moved.
Okay. And business arising from those minutes. Any?
None.
Mayor Brown?
No, none, sir.
None?
None.
Thank
No,
you.
Thank you.
So before us today, we have a couple reports. So we'll start out with Report A, which is Planning and Heritage Structure. And I will turn that over to CAO Eleanor Mohammed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Your Worship.
Do I just go back to my packets from June 6th to follow along with CAO Eleanor?
No, there would have been a package issued yesterday, late evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll open it now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll briefly go over this report a little bit in detail. I will note that it was at Finance Committee on Wednesday. Initially, we wanted it to be addressed at HR Committee first, but we ran out of time. So this has been through the Finance Committee and had unanimous support. But for the benefit of HR Committee, I'll run through the report for you here. So for a number of years now, it's been a struggle in the Planning and Heritage Department in terms of employee recruitment and retention. And there's a number of reasons for that. Really, the demand for subdivision and development has really outgrown the staff and resources and capacity. So there's a lot of pressure being put on staff that's hard to manage and hard to deal with. But another major issue is actually that the position descriptions in the department in the existing structure actually doesn't match current employment market trends right now for the profession of planning. So that's why we're having the difficulty attracting and retaining. And it has to do with planners as they come up in the career. Either they specialize in development or they specialize in policy, and they're not often both. So this is what's led to this recommendation in the report. I also would like to state again publicly that we are severely understaffed right now in the planning department. So understaffed that we're essentially having to triage our work, and the priority has been on permits and getting permits out. We have hired some consulting services in to help support us with this. There's only one planner on the island who really could help us with this situation right now. The challenge is for development permits, it's something that you need to do in person, so it's not something we can send electronically off island for someone to process. And we need them to be a registered professional planner who's working on it. So we have a shortage of those on the island and actually across Canada. So we're just asking for the public's patience as we move through this time. So that leads to the proposed new structure to help address some of these issues that we've been facing. And what's being proposed is 3 manager positions, a manager of development who will be responsible for all current planning functions, including development permits, subdivision, and rezoning applications. They'll also be the ones responsible for the zoning and development bylaw, including enforcement, reviews, and updates. The second manager is of policy and heritage. They'll be responsible for long-range and heritage planning functions, including the development of new policies, guidelines, and programs to address some of these challenging topics that we're faced with, including the housing crisis, loss of heritage through neglect, climate change adaptation, the unhoused, and aging in place, net zero, urban design. They'll be the ones who are responsible for the official plan, including monitoring key performance indicators, reviews, and updates. And the third manager is of building codes, and they'll be responsible for building permits as part of the development permits and ensuring the PEI Building Code Act is actually adhered to. So the manager of development is being funded from the manager of planning and heritage position that currently exists. So that funding will be moved to the manager of development. The manager of policy and heritage will be funded from eliminating the assistant manager position that council just approved. And then there's a little bit of top-up needed, but we believe we can find that from the salaries and benefits portion of our current budget for planning and heritage. And then the manager of building codes is proposed to come forward as part of the 2024-2025 budget. So I want to emphasize that these are working managers. They will be tasked with taking on the complaints and investigations, enforcement, all that kind of stuff that happens in the Planning and Heritage Department. And I believe it will really assist with the workload that's currently going on there. The second ask of today is the creation of 2 Planner 3 positions. This again talks about the specialization between development and policy planning. We're asking for 1 Planner 3 who's specialized in development and the other Planner 3 specialized in policy. And essentially why we're proposing that these 2 Planner 3 positions be created is to allow for us to retain our planners longer. So they can move up their succession, they can start with the organization, move into a senior planner position, and then they can move into this principal planner position. So it keeps them here. It's an expert level of planner. So bringing this level of planner on can also help us with doing more work in-house instead of through consultants. And these 2 positions we are proposing to fund because we believe we do have enough space this year through the salaries and benefits budget from planning and heritage. We have the space because of the vacancies that we have. And it's anticipated that the cost for this year will be about $76,000. And then it would be permanently approved in 2024, 2025. Or permanently funded, I should say. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, CAO Mohammed. I will start off with some questioning, I guess. So my question I have is, with the proposed 3 management positions, is that currently, were those roles all currently being filled by the former manager of planning so that role was being fulfilled by 1 person? All 3?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's correct. So yes, the manager, and I'll say the former manager who retired, was trying to fulfill those 3 roles. And I will say trying, because we've been in a situation now for quite some time when we haven't been hitting the service levels that we need to hit in that department. That's not at any fault of the manager who has retired. They certainly tried their best with the capacity that they had.
Okay. So as a result, if I'm reading this correctly, we would be looking to use that salary for at least one of the positions, so manager of development, we'll say. The manager of policy and heritage would come from the assistant manager position that council approved. But topping that up, obviously, because there'd be some discrepancy there, and then potentially the manager of building codes would go back to the operational budget ask of 24, 25 as a net new position at that point in time. So you would only be looking to really fill 2 positions immediately in that sense. Is that correct?
That's correct. So for Tay, it would be wonderful, Mr. Chair, if we can get
Or whatever you
approval
need
of the
first.
structure. And then step 2 at least would be, just like what we normally have to go through, we have to go through Finance Committee as well. So at least if we can approve the structure of where we're going, then it will be part of the budget ask for 2024, 25 for that manager of building codes.
And assuming none of these positions technically exist right now, so there would be I don't know if you call it position questionnaires here or how you identify your PQs. Those all need to be created as well for each of these positions and define duties and responsibilities and go through a classification is that the protocol here for all of this?
That's correct. So following this meeting, and if we're successful on Monday night with council, those positions would be developed very quickly.
And then I guess in line, I'm sorry, if, is there any other questions, feel free to buzz in. I can't hear Mayor Brown, I don't know if you're chiming in, but if you have any questions, let me know. In relation to the governance report, I don't believe this was identified there as a breakdown structure of that particular department. Probably due to the fact at the time there was an acting manager in that position, therefore probably not foreseeing needing to have a different structure. Would that be fair assessment of that?
That's correct. So the KPMG report did suggest a senior planner, which is the equivalent of the principal planner that's being suggested here. It would have been exactly that. And that KPMG report was heavily based on some staff feedback and what they were looking for in the context that they were in, versus recognizing what market conditions were. And the KPMG report is a good report in general for the whole organization, but the consultants weren't having a deep dive per se into each department in terms of complete restructuring and what that would look like.
Yeah, and certainly, things change over the course of time and needs change and demands and such, so I agree. And as a CAO, are you prepared to manage those 3 levels in the absence of potentially directorship at that level?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at part 1 of our HR committee meeting earlier on this week, there was a structure, a senior leadership team structure that was discussed. So there would be a director who would oversee these 3 managers, and that would be the director of integrated growth. And we're just at the stage of evaluating the recruiters to be able to work on that. So that will be coming through to this committee as well.
Okay. Let's take the
Chair?
time to, Councilor Ramsey, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CAO. So basically, we have the funding for the first 2 managers, and in 2024, it's going to be a new ask. Is that what I'm trying to read? Because when we get to council, they're going to say, are we funding everything this year of the 3 positions? But what you're saying is that we're using the former manager's money for one of them, and then the assistant managers for the other one. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Like, I'm just trying to put it all in. I'm in grade 6 education here because people might say, they might think Monday night that we're going to be funding, we're looking for 3 new positions, so we need money for 3 new positions. So that's sort of like to be clarified in that, because we don't want to, because we all know how planning is, and it's getting, I shouldn't use the word crazy, but it is. And we need the staff down there and, things along that line, and it's been pushed to the limit. Our city is growing. Like, I'm in favor of this. And with the other 3 positions, is that going to be in the 2023-24 budget, or is that going to be 24-25 budget?
The 2, through the chair, the 2 planner 3 positions?
Yes.
Yeah, so those will be funded immediately, so they'll
Okay.
go through. So we're finding money in our budget to fund those positions.
Yeah, that was my next question. I hope we can find some money in that budget, because once your budget's passed, right, there's not a whole lot of operating room there. So, no, I'm in favor of all that. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ramsey. Maybe we should have some clarification around, just for the way it might evolve. I don't know what your priority is within the three manager positions. If I read the proposal here, it insinuates that the funding of the manager of building codes position would be in 24, 25, meaning therefore that position would not be posted or whatever. However, I don't know if that's, if that is in fact the way in which you're trying to roll this out. So that we're clear at some point in 3 months' time, you say, oh no, we actually went ahead with the thing. We didn't do the other one. We did this one instead, so that we, so what we're approving is what actually we're approving. So if that is what they're, that'd be good.
Sure. Thank you,
Just
Mr.
for
Chair.
clarity.
So the
purposes.
manager of development and the manager of policy and heritage are the positions that's being hired right now.
Those are your priorities.
Building codes will continue to, will report under the manager of development until the 2024, 2025 ask, when we ask for the manager of building codes, in which case they'll move out from under development into their own respective area.
And just
Chair.
a final clarification, so I think you did indicate that finance, this was reviewed by finance, and finance is and has supported the funding of these positions within their internal operational dollars and the uptake of the second manager from the assistant manager position.
That's correct, yes.
Because I think we approved assistant manager, so as council, I guess that would have to clear is that we're gonna change it. So because now we're dividing those duties by 3, therefore negating the fact of needing an assistant manager, is that the is that going to be the valid argument to why not now needing an assistant manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, so the assistant manager position is being eliminated. It won't exist anymore in this department. And that's to allow for the specialized areas of planning and building code to take effect. Because the issue was that the manager was being asked to be specialized in policy and development, and then the assistant manager would expect to be the same. And it's the same issue that we're facing, where it's very rare to find the experts
Yeah.
and the managers in both.
So 6 months to a year, we're not going to be asked to also have assistant managers for these new 3 managers.
That's correct. So
Okay.
no, we won't be asking for that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Your worship, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So just attending the Atlantic Mayors Congress, we did a roundtable before I come up here. Can you hear me?
If you could speak just a tad louder, maybe even just
Okay.
shout a little bit on your end.
Okay. So I'm just leaving the meeting for our
Yeah.
roundtable with the Atlantic Mayors Congress. And this is a top priority, getting planners for their municipalities. So we're competing with all these other municipalities in the Atlantic region. And I agree with the CAO, Eleanor, that this is the direction we have to go. As she said, finance gave the green light for the 2 positions, manager of development and manager for policy and procedure. But if I just could ask CAO Eleanor, Donna Miller that you brought in, she's doing policy and procedure now. So will she move into a planner 2, planner 3 position?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through the chair. So our most recent hire came in as a planner 2.
Okay.
And as these planner 3 and manager positions are being created, anyone who's qualified internally can certainly apply for these new roles.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, again, if I could just give recognition to the CAO for following up on this very quick, following up on these two managers quickly. Like we need these positions in place. Finance has already made the decision yesterday to go ahead with them. And I believe we will be looking at 2 planner 3 positions, which is definitely needed. Again, all part of continue to service the community that we live in. So I agree with the proposal. I'm endorsing it. And I want to say that the KPMG report does have some good points. It does have some points that don't really apply to us, but overall, I think we can use it for other senior management positions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I think it's important to note that the KGM report in my opinion, is a bit of a roadmap, not necessarily carved in stone, but an overview done, an independent overview of the corporation and a roadmap as to what we may or may not need or what we should. And, and sometimes we know what's best when we're actually at the ground level working. So, I know that this doesn't directly align and tie back, but to some degree, I think in all confidence, we can, as the mayor is indicating, there are, this is a huge gap right now in the corporation. And certainly with as Councillor Ramsey noted, with the growth that is occurring across the city and the applications are coming and the things that need to be done. So, and on that note, let's move this forward to council. So, Councillor Ramsey?
Yes.
Okay.
I move it forward to council.
Okay. And Mayor Brown?
I second it, and
No, we may have lost you there, sorry.
now that it's on the floor, I just want to make it clear that Monday night after Monday night's meeting, if everything goes as planned, comms department should be putting something out as soon as possible with you speaking to it, that we are moving ahead to address the issues in our planning department, because all of the communities across the region are competing for planners and management. So this is a good news story.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, on to the next item on the agenda. We have, bear with me, we have the Employee Engagement Survey RFP Award. I'll hand that over to Ms. Emily. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go over at a high level this report, and I'll start with saying historically the city administered employee engagement surveys, most recently conducted in 2016 and again in 2018, which garnered a low response rate. The purpose of an employee engagement survey is to better understand the needs, expectations, and priorities of our staff in order to support them and their teams in a consistent and ongoing way. Council approved through the 2023 and 2024 operating budget the funds for the city to conduct an employee engagement survey. An RFP was issued. There's a copy of that RFP in your package, and it closed on May 12th. We received 15 submissions, and the committee met to discuss, and narrative research was ranked as the highest scoring proposal. We've conducted 2 references and are recommending that committee approve this recommendation and forward to council for approval so that the project team can initiate the process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Emily, for your report. Just on the, I think we've talked about this before. I know a question was brought to council or at another meeting. We don't have the in-house resources capacity to perform such a survey, analyze the data, report on it. Is that correct?
Correct. There are a few other reasons we would use a third party to conduct an employee engagement survey. One of them, they provide benchmarking opportunities against other municipalities. Staff also typically have concerns when it comes to anonymity with participating in employee engagement surveys. So by opting to use a third party, this would allow for another layer of confidentiality and possibly garner more candid feedback from our staff. A third party can also scrub the data if there are any identifying factors disclosed by our staff. We're also not survey experts here, like you mentioned, and they'll have a dedicated team to ensure we're meeting the timelines.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsey?
Thank you, Chair. Once again, for the layman's terms, this firm will be going in and talking to all departments and seeing what can be approved. Like, I'm just putting it out there for the public with what we're sort of voting on here today of the whole process. It's just an evaluation of every department and every employee, or how does that work? Maybe, for the World Wide Web, I guess.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Through the chair, yes, correct. Narrative Research will be conducting this survey both in paper format and electronic. They will connect with the city and we'll decide what sorts of questions we will be asking. But again, it is to better understand the needs, expectations, and priorities of our staff so we can move forward when implementing different programs and strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm in favor of that.
Just one last question,
Oh,
or I'll
sorry.
give the mayor an opportunity to speak as well. So as a result of the feedback that comes of this, what is the plan of action with that? Or maybe it'll be determined what comes out of there if there is. So from a staffing perspective, what type of reporting will be provided back to staff? Would it be rolled up to common themes, potentially actionable items? Any number of things, like, it's one thing to do the survey, it's another, what are we going to do with the data when we receive it? And I think that's what sometimes, employees can feel that, we voice our things, but nothing's heard, nothing changes, those types of things. So can we speak to that today? And if not, that's fine, I understand.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That again is why we would be using a third party. They have a dedicated team and will be taking that data and determining how we share that and communicate that with staff, including a timeline of when that will be presented. They will actually be the ones working with us to deliver those reports and feedback to staff and create timelines with the CAO and HR to implement any necessary or required changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Brown, have any questions you'd like to ask?
Chair, just one quick question. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Chair, I'm totally in support of it. I'd just like to have a question through the chair to Emily, our manager. Emily, this has come up in the past about exit surveys. Is that something you will be surveying as part of this process?
So it would be more, I think he's, if I understand you correctly, Mayor Brown, I think he was adding an additional component of this, what sounds like for exit surveys. I'm not sure if they're conducted now as staff.
They are.
They are conducted as staff?
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through the chair, Your Worship, this wouldn't be including any exit survey types of questions. This is simply to provide us, a path forward when it comes to employee engagement and what programs and practices we should be putting into place. Those exit surveys that are conducted are where we gather that sort of feedback on to why an individual might be leaving the corporation. This wouldn't be the platform to do so. Thank you.
Again, going through the chair to Emily, our manager of human resources. No, Emily, I was talking about asking that exit surveys is part of the process. In a survey, would you make comment or ask comments or request comments on how people feel, employees that are leaving the corporation feel about them, and where do they belong? I'm not asking about talking about exit surveys, but about being part of the process.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. I think, yes, in terms of gaining employee feedback, that is part of the process. Anytime there's an exit survey, that's something that HR, the managers, and even I would, need to be looking at depending on what the scenario was, and making sure information was protected at the same time, looking for ways for continuous improvement. The employee survey could be an annual event or every couple of years versus an exit survey as well. That's something that we would be dealing with every time we had an exit to see how we can improve.
Yeah. And last, just on that, Mr. Chair, again, I think I'd like to have further discussion on it. I thought it was maybe a way or a venue or a possibility to just get feedback from employees about how they feel about the surveys. And I think that we can leave that for a future conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Okay, so we'll vote to move that forward. Do we have?
We'll move that forward, yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Brown, would you choose to move that forward?
I do, sir. I second the resolution.
2 to move forward. Thank you. Okay. And I think we have one more report. So we have another report, the Community Engagement Assistant Update. Emily, would you like to take that?
Sure. I believe this report is stemming from a question that was asked in one of our council meetings. Historically, the Office of Mayor and Council was staffed with an executive assistant, formerly known as an executive secretary, and an administrative assistant. The executive assistant officially left the city in 2018, and that administrative assistant moved up into that executive assistant role. The administrative assistant role was not filled at the time, and the communications department was asked to assist with specific items such as drafting speaking notes. The need for more support in the mayor's office was evident with the absence of that administrative assistant role. And in 2019, the city created and hired a community liaison officer. There was some turnover in that role, and it was redesigned to a community engagement assistant, and that was filled in October of 2020. Previous administration determined that it would be best to return to the former structure and fill the administrative assistant role in the Office of Mayor and Council. The Cultural and Economic Coordinator position was created, which encompassed a portion of assistance when it comes to protocols and duties from the mayor's office, with the duties of the community engagement assistant being redistributed back to the administrative assistant and to the cultural and economic coordinator position. It was determined that the community engagement assistant position would be eliminated at that time. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Emily. Yes, so you're correct. There was a question brought forward by Councillor Tweel through to me at the regular meeting of council. So I thank you for providing that context, and we can share that information through this package to him and any others on council who are looking for that information. So again, a little bit before my time, so I'm not really, I have nothing to compare with the reason for the previous position. But I'll recognize both Sherry and Jackie for all the wonderful work that they do in the mayor's office to assist council in different engagements that we have. So I'm not sure if it is something that we want to revisit, if there's something felt that we're missing, council is missing, and again, maybe even I'll put it back to Councillor Ramsey or to the mayor to speak to previous experiences in that role.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Back in 2014, we never had a person in that role, and then it was brought on, I believe, in 2018, and it didn't seem to work out because from my past experiences, what's going through the mayor's office and through council and everything would be the two ladies that are there now, Jackie and Sherry, who do a great job, and if there's public announcements or things along that line, we go to our comps department. That's what we're always told, and they're willing to work with us day and night. And I don't think we need a third person, like, as I stated here Tuesday or Wednesday, like we can hire and hire and hire, but is it a want or is it a need? And I know every councillor can go to Jackie or Sherry or Janice or even our CAO or any of that, if you want a press release or have someone help you work on it. So, my own personal opinion, I like the way things are going right now. As far as putting another body around, I can't see it happening, Thank you. That's just my personal opinion.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Brown, would you like to weigh in on this?
can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Faintly, but we can hear you.
Okay. The history of this position came about in 2018, 2019 with Jen Gavin and I think Alicia Packwood working with a community engagement officer at the time. But through the chair to Emily or our CAO, this is a position that is on our list of employees. How do we deal with that issue of it is already officially a title, a community engagement officer? Could I get an answer for that, Mr. Chair?
Sure, I'm going to defer that over to Emily to respond.
Sure, Your Worship, through the chair. Just because we have a position created in the city does not mean we have to fill that position. Times change, things shift in the organization, and we have different needs come up. So we won't be filling that at this time, but if it is something we need to revisit, like Councillor Ramsey said, we can do so. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chair, that's the answer I was expecting, is that we're not eliminating that position. It's still there. But I can tell you, as you know, Chair, and also Councillor Ramsey and other councillors, that the executive assistants in the office of the mayor and council, because they serve both offices, office of the mayor and office of councillor, are doing an excellent job. Jackie and Cherry are always answering and following up from any concerns I have or any issues I bring to their attention. Same for any of the councillors. And now we have a communications department with two, and we're adding a third person. And as you know, we do have assistants down in economic development through Doug Dumais, who also provides assistance to our staff up in the office of the mayor and office of councillors. So lots of, I think a lot of inputs are not only to the benefit of the elected officials, but to the corporation itself and the community. So I think we're going in the right direction. And as Emily said, Mr. Chair, the community engagement officer's position has not been eliminated. It is still there, but right now I think other priorities where we can get more police on the streets, or more police in our neighborhoods, more work done in our city, in our parks, throughout our infrastructure requirements or needs can be fulfilled by prioritizing where we're prioritizing right now, and that is a great staff that's assisting with our elected officials and our city staff. So I fully endorse going forward in the direction that you've suggested.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mayor. Councillor Ramsey, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, we're just saying the position is still there, but we're not filling it as this moment, and we'll look in the future, and if there's a need for it, then we'll go down that road, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. However, we would have to request the funding, as that funding has been dropped out of the operational budget. So we would need to revisit that. And yes, it was reallocated to other positions that were deemed a
If we're going to
priority.
fill that position.
Yes,
Yes, okay,
correct.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask,
ahead.
as chair, do we require a resolution or a motion for this, or is this just for information?
Yeah, this was really just a inquiry that was directed to me at the last monthly meeting of council. And I think it is more of a clarification. I can provide that directly to Councillor Tweel, or direct him to this discussion. It's clearly being recorded. Or have Emily, I think Emily has already provided to me in writing, or sorry, the CAO, sorry, one of you provided me, right? I think maybe both of you, but anyways, we can certainly put that forward just to close the loop on that. And if there's further discussion, we're certainly welcome to have that.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just end with this, I think there's a lot more collaboration amongst our comm staff, office of the mayor, office of councillor, economic development, in getting the right message out and getting ahead of the narrative. So look, we're going in the right direction. As it was stated by Emily, our manager of human resources, the money wasn't put in there this year. So I would prefer to leave the budget as is, because we have so many priorities that we have to take care of. And I think we're doing a great job in communicating what we have to the public. And under your leadership, sir, I'm sure you'll give a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I think we need to have a point of clarification there is, although you just indicated we should leave the budget there, I just heard the budget has been reallocated. The position within the corporation exists on paper, but the budget has been reallocated for other purposes. So if we were to entertain the possibility of resurrecting this position as an active position within the city, we would essentially have to either reallocate funds back to it and then take away from something, or come to council seeking more funding to either fund what we're taking it back from, or vice versa. So I just want to be clear on that understanding, correct? Okay. Yeah. Just, no. Yeah, just for the funding.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I couldn't hear Emily or Eleanor. Could they please turn on the mic just to clarify get a clarification to your question? That's a good question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair,
Eleanor, or
and thank you, Your
CEO.
Worship, for the question. I was just simply clarifying that the position exists, but the funding doesn't exist. So if we were to have to come back, we would just go through finance and we would ask for funding.
Thank you.
Okay, just one final question on this topic. Where does this position exist? Does this position exist within intergovernmental affairs communications, or is it within HR? Or is it? I think it's important to note that, or not today, but at some point. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It exists in the broad group called administration,
Correct.
Okay.
yes, which is essentially
Yeah.
the CAO's area.
Okay.
Thank
That's
you.
fine. Thank you.
And if I could add
Yeah,
to,
go ahead.
when it was first added on, when Jen and Alicia was here, it was under them, under the comps, I believe. Emily, that's what it
Right.
was. And then it
Yes.
just went from there.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, if I could just add, it was, as CAO Eleanor stated, that it was under the administration. This person reported directly to the CAO.
Okay, thank you. And just going back to my notes, one last thing is Councillor Bernard had also asked in relation to, was the community engagement officer, was that a position that was identified in the governance review of KPMG? I looked to myself, I do not recall that being a position that was in there, but I wanted to just ask the question formally here to address the query that came to me on the last special, or Monday night meeting of council.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Off the top of my head, I don't believe that position was noted in the KPMG report, at least not a position, as CAO said, as a high demand role.
Okay. Right, thank you. And again, going back to the report was a roadmap, regardless if it was identified or not identified, in my opinion, that could, if there's a need and the council's will, then we'll revisit it at that time. All right, thank you. If there's no further questions on that report, thank you very much, Emily.
Just one final point,
Oh.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor, or Councillor
could we-
Mayor Brown.
Could we please, Emily or CAO Eleanor, could we clarify that question from the chair in the KPMG, so if it does come up, that we do have an appropriate response?
Yeah, I don't, okay, I think we have an answer now, Your Worship.
Yes, Your
Okay.
Worship, through the chair, we just did a quick search and the community engagement assistant was not mentioned in the KPMG report.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, on to the agenda. Any further discussions?
Nope.
Hearing none.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, introduction of new business? Seeing none, thank you. And request to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Moved.
Councillor Ramsey, second
Moved.
by.
Second it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Brown. Enjoy your conference, and we'll
Thank-
see you soon. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Emily, thank you, CEO. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Stay safe.